Hello and welcome back to Looking Up with Laird. I'm Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare, joined as always, or I'll say once again, after a nice 3-week break to enjoy the World Cup. We've got Harry Trades, Sam Tighe. Gentlemen, we talked before the World Cup about how the group that all of our nations were in was a little weird for this setup we have. Sam and I can be cordial to each other after the scoreless draw between the U.S. and England. And Harry, welcome back from Qatar.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So we're taping this, let's see, Wednesday, December 14th. It's going out on Thursday. So we're technically, by the time everyone was watching this, there's just the final left and the always exciting third place game that everybody always wants to see. So we are going to transition a little bit here back to club football and what we all actually play so rare to do. So we've got 4 more guys that we're going to add to our watch list today. As always, the link to the watch list is in the description below. Please hit the like button below as you gain some knowledge from these 2 gentlemen throughout the video. So gentlemen, welcome back. And Sam, why don't you kick us off with our first player who's looking up for the future?
Yeah, good to be back. I like that you called it a 3-week break when in reality I probably have never worked harder. It was a break from looking up with Laird,
right?
But it was certainly not a break. I mean, I watched every game at the World Cup and there were 4 a day. It was pretty intense at points, but you can't complain about watching football, can you? But yeah, let's start to transition back to club football. It feels about the right time. I'm going to start with Habib Keita, who is on loan at Kortrijk from Lyon. So he plays in Belgium. He's a player I really like. And in many ways, he's kind of like the epitome of the so rare experience, because he basically went and made his debut with Kortrijk early this season, first game, and you'll be able to locate it pretty easily on the graph. He scored an 86. And everyone just went, oh my God, I bought him, including me. Anyone who did that has paid far too much for Habib Keita, but we've compartmentalized that. We've dealt with that and we're moving on. The good news is that once you buy a player like this, you basically end up going and watching him, don't you? Because you're drawn to watching Habib Keita because you've got a stake in him. And yeah, I end up watching Kortrijk like an insane person. But hey,
right there.
Yeah, I mean, valuable experience because actually I've taken a real shine to him. I think he's really, really good. You watch him and you can get the sense that he is clearly one of the better players on his team. He's on loan from Lyon. You can tell he's grown up in an elite academy setup. There's perhaps a lack of maturity sometimes to his game, which is understandable at his age, but all of his actions are so much smoother. And you can tell like his movements are very polished and he's reading the game far better than most others. So that lends itself to quite a hefty AA score at times. It's a lot of tackles, it's a lot of interceptions, and he is winning a lot of his duels. So double happens pretty much every game he plays 60 or more minutes in. And he hasn't quite hit the heights of that first one, but he's come close a couple of times. And I feel like there's a pretty decent floor on this player at, 50 to 55. It's like, that's about as bad as it gets, which isn't a bad sign at all. And he's also doing this while Kortrijk are getting battered by basically everybody they come across. Like, they are rubbish. Their results are awful.
Yeah.
But he still scores really well. So if you're looking at this and thinking, Sam, that's a good suggestion for 6 months' time when he gets a better loan, I don't blame you. But I'm just looking at his price and I'm just like, that is on all 3 levels really of limited and rare and then super rare. I don't think he's on the market right now, but at least 2 levels. It's very cheap for a guy with a lot of under 23 eligibility left, for a guy who probably worst case scenario, if he plays 90 minutes, scores 50 points and best case can hit a 70 or something like that. And Belgium, of course, are one of the first leagues back. I mean, the clock is ticking on Belgium. They're back in like 6 or 7 days or whatever it is.
Always love that. Yeah, it's wild to see a player with a 17 all-around average over any time frame. Not to mention one this young playing for a team this bad. And I guess you can make the argument that there are plenty of defensive actions up for grabs when you play for a poor team, but we don't always get that. I mean, there are plenty of players. There are plenty of rubbish players on rubbish teams that don't get those defensive stats. And so, yeah, this is pretty exciting. It's wild that 86 came without a decisive. Obviously, he's got 2 decisives, and I'll just call it an unfortunate red card since I have no idea what transpired to get that red card in his last match.
I don't know, but it was really annoying because he got the assist first, and then I looked at Sorare data and was like, yes, he's going to score. He's got a decisive under his belt, and he averages like 70 to 20 AA. He is about to go nuclear. And I checked back like 5 minutes later, and he'd been red carded. I was like, well, that's ruined that.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, 33 minutes. So a bit unfortunate because, I mean, given his regular all-around scores, like 100 is in play when you get on the decisive. So that one is definitely a fun call there. And I feel like we should hear more about this guy, given that he's U23. I feel like there's always a little bit of a U23 kind of megaphone when these guys have scores like this. So maybe it's just getting now before there is, 2.
There was one in August. There was definitely a megaphone in August.
That's true. That's true.
And you can see it in the price spike. And I'm one of those poor suckers somewhere at the top. I got very excited. You're going to try and find me and shame me. But he's very, very good. And you can just tell at this level when there is a player who is clearly a class apart, who's just clearly a bit better.
Yeah.
And that's him already. I would expect next season him to get like a better loan. I'd like to see him go back to Belgium, but play on loan at one of the better sides. And I think he'd do just as well, if not better, and just concede far fewer goals, take a -2 chunks out of his score. He's conceding 3 or 4 goals and still putting up that AA, despite it being chipped away by his teammates' ineptitude, which is always positive.
Yeah, always helpful. 2 ETH for the unique. When was this? Oh my, it was reward. Oh, in August. So it was probably right when he explodes, and then they get the unique out. But yeah, that's a fun one. And Harry, how do you feel about Sam kind of pulling into the U23 streets here?
Yeah, I feel like he's stomping on my territory a little bit, but I do actually recall that 45 AA score actually back whenever that was in August time. As Sam recalled, I remember there had been quite a lot of hype. Well, there was a lot of hype around him at the time. Obviously, it's only 1 score. We've seen it many a time before. Like I pulled the plug on that Vinicius Souza after like 1 big score in Belgium, and you know what I'm saying, like there is sort of success stories from it. There is sort of ones where it goes the opposite way, but that's sort of the gamble you have to take, isn't it, with football?
Yeah, I love it. It's kind of an interesting one. Every player I hear of now, I start to think of whether they're good for the new capped mode. And this one's kind of interesting because one of the early things we've seen are the huge home away splits, or players who have low scores against good teams, and therefore you can play them against bad ones. And he kind of comes off as somebody who is probably good in any situation, minus the unfortunate red cards, I guess. I mean, even banging a 50 at Gank. I mean, obviously, when you play lesser teams, you tend to, it's okay to get higher scores. But I mean, 63.7 against away to Bruges, that's pretty solid. And so I feel like it's a former very good threshold player who's now maybe a good for the cap. Like an L15 to 52 is not that low.
I can't figure it out. I mean, his L15, it doesn't do you that many favors in terms of volatility, but he is extremely reliable. So I mean, the conversation of is he good for the cap? It is no longer limited to solo analysis of a player. Like, you can no longer look at just one player and say, is he good for the cat? It depends. The answer is always, it depends.
Sure.
It's just the way it is. So I have no idea how it's going to pan out in terms of the limited, but in terms of the cap, but he can score really well. Harry, I'm sure that this is a player. You have a player like this in your gallery, like in your under 20. You'll have similar players that score like this, and you'll be using them to try and win rewards. So, at the very least, they're good for that too.
Definitely, 100%. Especially in like a super rare form.
That's
kind of the most ideal, super rare midfielder form, I guess.
What I tend to do when I hit the similar players tab on any player is I ignore anyone that isn't that good. And I'll just say, like, boy, if you are a similar player to Chouameni, then you got it. Forget everybody else on this list, particularly Yari Verscharen. But anyway, Harry, are you keeping us in the U23 streets?
I am, and I'm keeping us in the midfielder street as well, actually. So we're going with Dundee United's Dylan Levitt. I think I've gone on record sort of saying that I don't really rate him that highly, and that's more in like a Wales shirt type of situation, where like he doesn't, well, in the World Cup he didn't get off the bench at all, which wasn't really surprising. That's nothing, like, that's no sort of negative on him. I don't think he was sort of planning on really getting many minutes, but yeah, for Dundee, I can't really knock what he's doing for the price that I'm sort of seeing him at now. I'm looking at 0.126 2-week average for his rare, $15 for his limited, L15 to 55. Like, again, going into the cap situation, I don't know how that's going to work out. Again, it depends, like Sam says, but he can hit peaks. He takes set pieces. He can hit some really good AA scores as well as those decisive. I think he's got 4 goals this season already, a couple of assists for like a 21-year-old player, 22, sorry. I don't really know what more do you want on like a budget, to be honest. I know in Scotland it's not as glamorous as the other leagues, and it does get overlooked quite a lot. But they're playing game week 329, 330, 331. He's got some decent fixtures, a couple of home games in there. So like, he's somebody that could probably slot in quite quickly and maybe do some damage for you after him being at the World Cup and of course not playing.
So Levitt's a player that I think I definitely had his limited card at one point, and it came after I unsuccessfully tried to get his super rare. Mm-hmm. And that came after Stish talked about him, because Stish owns his unique. Yeah. And I had previously bought not to put pressure on Stish here, but Stish has the Lee Han Bum unique. And I was like, if this kid is good enough for Stish to buy the unique, I'll go get the super rare. Which worked out for a little bit. He got an unfortunate injury, but then Levitt was another one. And I was like, man, and looking at the scores, like, you're right, like set pieces, Dundee United is good enough where set pieces for that team is helpful. I thought he was a pretty good super rare. This was back when I wanted to play U23. He obviously is U23 for 3 more seasons, or 2 more after this, excuse me. And yeah, it was just like one that, like, I just couldn't quite get at the right time. But I like him a lot. It's funny what you said before when you were like, you weren't from a Wales perspective, and I wasn't sure if you meant like Wales from his international team or you as a whale.
Oh, right.
But I got it. Your explanation, as you went further, I got it. But yeah, I think it's a really good call. Do you know so I know that he was on loan for Manchester United, and kind of there was talk at the end of last season that maybe he wouldn't go back to Dundee United. He obviously did. There were some DNPs kind of early in the season that actually this season? Now that I've said that. Oh no, that was last season. So I guess he wasn't. He was just kind of, maybe he joined late, and like I remember like the beginning of his season like wasn't great. But obviously he's starting to pick it up and got a few decisives before the World Cup. His AA score is kind of volatile, but like when the AA score is high, like we see here, it's got like a 31.8, 23.2. So obviously in the right situations, you can expect quite a bit from him. And yeah, I like that call.
Yeah, the only issue is Dundee aren't a great team.
Right.
Like, but that doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't score well. I think in that 7-0 loss to AZ, he actually scored a 30 AA in 75 minutes. So I know that's just one game, but yeah, I think that's the only worry. But then you look at like Scottish football, and set pieces probably define a lot of their sort of games in that sense. And yeah, that just can only help somebody like Levitt, who's taken, well, from what I saw on Sorare data, the majority of their corners and whatever. So yeah, no, I think he can be a definite asset to any sort of gallery.
Yeah, and like you said, like we tend not to look at guys like this and be like, here's some immediate reason to buy them today because they're going to go right up. We had a little bit of that during the World Cup. We were talking before we started recording. Antoine Griezmann had this run up before, and Levitt has this benefit that the SPFL is back very soon, and so getting one soon just allows you to have utility on cards on a player that a lot of other players do not have utility yet. So that's I think we're going to see a lot of people at least looking towards Scotland for cards soon, because we all love the World Cup, and my gosh, we are just dying to get club football back.
Also, we should all be emulating Mr. Trades here, who on a quiet midweek or a quiet game week absolutely cleans up. And I mean, he's the one sat here watching Scottish football. He's the one that can recommend Conor Barron, Callum Slattery, Dylan Levitt, and he's the one that's also picking up Vinny Juniors. So we should all be just very much listening to what he has to say. Congrats on that, by the way, Harry.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I won't sit here and say like that was like planned, as in like I knew this 4-man game week was cut. You know what I'm saying? Like I promise you, it wasn't like that. It just I won a Bellis the week before. It's so be it. It fitted in perfect with my two other Burnley players, and Fleming has been on fire recently. So yeah, it wasn't like something that I'd planned to do. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't know like, oh, this is gonna smash. I just didn't. But it's funny, I can actually play the exact same lineup this weekend, like the same 4, and Burnley are at home to Middlesbrough. So could we see an emulation of the same result? But nah, yeah, I appreciate the
Mbappe this time. But I'll be honest, the Vinicius Junior card in your gallery now is why I was hesitant on the whale thing. Right. Yes, congratulations on that. Burnley stacked to win Vinicius Junior is what this game is all about. So congrats to that. Mr. Tighe, who we got next?
Well, I just thought I'd say that just to rival Mr. Trade's success in that game week, I won a German Bundesliga 2 player that I can't pronounce his name and I don't know who he is. So we're very much on a similar level.
The beauties of Sorare right there as well.
Yeah. Pulling in very similar rewards. Right, next up, I almost can't believe I'm about to say this because I think I'd lost hope for him, but things are looking up for Leon Bailey at Aston Villa. I think I'd like to start here by giving a big shout out to Andrew Black, who may finally be out of his hole of misery on Leon Bailey. He's been in there for a long time now. Last time I checked, it was 18 months he'd been trapped. He and all the other Leon Bailey owners just really struggling with the absolutely massive disappointment that Bailey has been since essentially swapping Leverkusen for Aston Villa. It's like a £30 million deal, huge expectation. Had this amazing home debut against Everton where he scored the most wonderful goal. And then since then, he's absolutely flatlined. He's been awful. And it's been tough to see. And you can see it in the scores. You can see it in the descending price. Like it's really poor. I've got a pretty stunning statistic for you guys to underline how poor his production levels have been. He has scored 4 goals for Aston Villa in 18 months. Each of those 4 goals have been under different managers. He's never scored more than 1 goal for a manager at Villa. Amazing. Dean Smith got 1 on his home debut, then didn't score for like a year. Got 1 for Gerrard earlier this season. Then he got 1 under the caretaker manager between Gerrard and Unai Emery. And then he got 1 on Emery's debut as well. So if you think back to his time at Leverkusen and you can flick the stats all the way back and see how it used to rain decisives for him, it's a real far cry, obviously, from what must have been an absolute bounty every single week. But I think things are about to change for him. So there's two reasons for that. Emery coming in is about 50% of it. I think he's about to turn the corner based on the manager. Gerrard didn't play with wingers, so Bailey was obviously going to struggle to really make his way into this lineup and command a regular spot. He was very often coming off the bench for 15 minutes, maybe being chucked up front, whatever, might be an emergency formation. But Villa started very narrow a lot of the time, and Bailey just couldn't get in the team. Since Emery's took over, he's put a 4-4-2 in place, and he's played Bailey up front. So he's not even having to do the sort of defensive tracking on the flanks that an Unai Emery winger has to do, which he generally leaves to a central midfielder who he plays wider. He's put Bailey up front with Ollie Watkins and just said, use your speed, hit the channels, let's go. He's basically playing the Danjuma role from Villarreal. And it's really working for him. He's obviously got a lot of pace. He's got great technique. He's got great ambition when it comes to shooting and weaving his way through defenses. This is kind of the situation you want your explosive attacker to be in. Yeah. And then the other 50% of this is just fitness. It's just very simple. It's just fitness. Because that home debut I referenced, like the goal he scored, if you haven't seen it or if you can't remember it, look up the goal he scored against Everton. It is unbelievable. He hits the ball so hard, he pops his thigh. I don't know if he tore it or just pulled it, but something in his thigh pops because he kicks the ball that hard. He goes down onto the turf like 2 minutes later, and then he comes off and he's out for a month. And then he just can't quite get himself back to fitness. And so that, plus the fact that Gerrard didn't use wingers, he was screwed. But he had a full preseason. He's had a full what are we calling this break? Mid preseason? Whatever it is. The warm weather training camp
there you go.
That everyone has done. He's been great. He's got a spot in the team. I think this is it. I think this is where his Aston Villa career starts. And, a lot of people will be very, very nervous around Bailey, a lot maybe distrusting, but I'm here to say that I think finally this is the corner being turned. There are no limiteds for now.
Yeah.
I know nothing, but for now. But plenty of rares on in circulation, and I don't know. I checked earlier about five on the market. One about 0.2 or something like that. All forward cards, not bad really. Genuinely not bad. It's a bit of a punt because you are asking him to carry this forward, but I think he's finally in a position to do so.
So when I was looking at the score chart, and I was like, all right, if you just look at the last year, he has a few up games and whatnot. And then I was like, wait a minute, I definitely remember him having some absurd goal for Jamaica. And I was like, all right, let me take Jamaica out. And then you lose two of those very nice green scores. So Bailey's an interesting one. I was joking before we started, when you told us you were going to talk about Bailey, how Sorare OGs have Leon Bailey cards because they had him back when he was at Leverkusen and he was like this elite U23 forward. And those who still have him probably haven't used him in a while. He actually seems like the perfect threshold player, new capped mode threshold player. 43 L15. He's probably, we think more decisives are coming. I wouldn't say he's the highest AA player, but in appropriate attacking situations, he can get up there, shots on target and, duels won. And when he can move forward in good situations, you can get positive attacking all around scores. And then if he does score, you get something like this Manchester United game where it's a 72 off of an L15 of 43 is exactly what you want from these new cap mode games. So I think I'm curious what happens. And obviously we don't know this is happening, but if we start getting somehow Aston Villa cards on the platform, do people go for them or not? Because obviously there are no limiteds right now. So we don't know what the kind of limited value is. And I would normally say he's one of those players who has a low mint count because they obviously haven't minted. I mean, he hasn't been at Leverkusen, so they stopped it. But 123 rares and 20 super rares is a lot of cards. That's not nothing. And so he is kind of one of these players that maybe forgotten because he doesn't come up on auctions, but also there are enough people who have his cards because there are a lot of them. So it'd be interesting where the market goes if the Premier League cards come out, and obviously he's in the Premier League now.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, just to add to those reasons as to why people may be satisfied with their appetite on him, there has been no reason to buy him for the last 18 months. Like, he's been forgotten because he's been rubbish and injured and useless. Like, you would never have bought him. Like, I'm sure that market movement's been pretty limited too, because you know what Bailey can be. A lot of these cards were probably bought at a significantly higher price, early doors, because he was smashing decisives. And then there becomes that case of, well, I don't want to let go of him. I don't want to lose him. I don't want to sell out of because what if, what if he gets back to it?
Yeah.
And I don't blame people for hanging on to that investment and hoping that it changes, because he's only 25 years old and he's just had 18 months off. so he should have a nice long career ahead of him from here. I can understand, and I just think that, like, for those of you that are possibly, this is aimed at more at those of you that are holding Leon Bailey. Like, I think it's about to get a lot better. Finally, I think this is the time. I'm surprised. I actually genuinely never thought it would happen, but I think Emery is the key, and so that's good news. And then we'll see maybe what a limited market might look like perhaps soon. But also, while it does look like a good threshold player now, according to my calculations, which are both extensive and imaginary, I don't know if his L15 will look good enough for a threshold by the time the threshold comes in. Like,
that's a good point.
It might change. January might be truly prolific, and we might be looking at a completely different scenario.
Yeah, that's a great point. We've got, I imagine right out the gates, it probably is not exploding. Home against Liverpool, away to Spurs. And then it gets
depends.
easier.
I mean, it's like if it's Emery's counter-attacking 4-4-2 and he's the one playing on the break and running into channels and space, like, that's where the space is. It's probably, I don't know for sure, but to me, it sounds like a fixture or two that he might enjoy. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. And he's back in action on Boxing Day, so, like, clock is ticking on that one too. He probably has 5 games before the new threshold regulations.
Right. So we're saying, like, that's another player that has much short-term utility just in terms of getting you somebody. But obviously, the threshold is not until the end of January. So we've got some time there. But good shout. Mr. Trades, you want to finish this off today?
Yeah, for sure. Bit of a sort of a new kid on the block for me in terms of just, like, coming on my radar is Venezia's Tanner Tessman. Fellow American, as our looking up a Laird host is. Sorry,
you had me thrown then. I was like, who the hell is...
Do you think I was going to say Vitinha?
No. I was trying to figure out the pronunciation of Venezia.
Oh, sorry.
It's Venice, isn't it? It's just Venice. But it's Venice. Venezia, yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. That's just what they call it.
Okay, sorry. Basically, they were rubbish for a little while. Judging off their sort of from game week 3-12 to, like, game week 3-2-2, they won one game away to Cagliari, and lost basically every other one apart from a couple of draws. He wasn't involved in those games at all. There's one start where he played 59 minutes. Just before that, though, in game week 3 or 4, he had a red card. So he seems quite prone to a red or a yellow, looking at the sort of the past fixtures when they played in Serie A as well. But the last few games, he's started 90 minutes in the last 4. First game, minus 2.5, yellow card, nothing to really look at there. 14 AA in the second, 19 AA in the third. And he actually got himself a 25 AA in this most recent game and a goal. And the goal was actually a set piece. It's a very, very nice free kick. Yeah, I actually noticed Sean, PSU had played him last weekend. Oh, yeah, the weekend that I won the Vinny. So, last game week. In some sort of team, might have been like an underdog. I think he has the super. He might even have the unique. I don't remember. But regardless, I saw him in there and I was like, why has he played him? It was actually an under 23 pro, actually. That's why that was why I was looking at it, because it was sort of something that could have screwed me over in terms of winning the division type of thing, because he scored, he had the super, that was it, and he scored like 118 points. There it is, the Tanner super. And I was just like, who is this kid? Kind of did a little bit of digging, and saw that they bought him from FC Dallas for like 3.6 mil in 2021. Like I said, didn't really get off to the best of starts whilst they were in Serie A. Played a couple of games, mostly substitute appearances. One clearance off the line against Fiorentina, but nothing to sort of shout about. But it seems like he's found his mojo in Serie B, and they're winning games now, which is nice. They've not lost in 4, 3 wins, 1 draw. And he seems to defensively get quite a lot of contributions. I'm seeing a few doubles. I'm seeing tackles won, interceptions, net, like for the most part, he's winning more duels than he's losing. Final third accurate passes. I'm looking at this now in the game against Modena. So the second but last game, he made 28 final third passes, which accumulates like 8.4 points. Plus, like your accurate passes, he's basically just swooping up on passes. And then if he's getting the double or any defensive action, it seems like it's really benefiting the score. And long may this sort of green or the sea of green continue. But there's not that many cards out there. There's 29 rares, 3 supers, and no limiteds, unfortunately. But for that price, like what is he on the market for exactly? I'm seeing average of 0.1.
That's cheap for rare. Considering if this holds, if this is normal, that's really cheap.
And he won't lose his XP, I don't think, if that makes sense. Like that 8 there, I don't know if that's if it's level 6, which means that he's still got his 5% bonus, I imagine. Similar to like the Callum Slattery situation where for some reason he hasn't been minted. So somebody that, again, small sample size, but something to really keep an eye on, I think.
So I remember when he moved, there was kind of this he was good in MLS, but like he wasn't great. And then there was this kind of wave of like young MLS players who like didn't play that much, and all of a sudden they're going to Europe, and you're like, wait, if you're not that good enough here, why are you going there? But like obviously they are willing to develop more in Europe, which we're seeing more and more of. Like Paxton Aronson signed with Frankfurt recently, and when Tessman went, Gianluca Busio also went to Venezia before they got relegated. And I remember when they got relegated, and I was like, because it felt like everyone I know that followed MLS and had MLS card had a Busio, and then they get relegated, and you're just like, well, that card is now dead. And then Sorare resurrects us to get to second division Europe, bringing them back. And obviously Tessman is one that is able to be played again. We don't have like new Venezia cards. I don't I guess.
So on that, like there are some Serie B teams, right, that have been So was it just like a handful of them, like with the Championship? Is that what they did? They didn't get a league partnership. Because if that's the case, I mean, I must say I don't know, but given the way Venezia operate on Twitter and the disdain they seem to have for a lot of modern football things, I would be pretty surprised if they were getting on board with NFT technology. If it was their choice, I would be very surprised. So I would say that equates to no. I think as in to see Venezia cards, like a partnership with them, I'd be like, I wouldn't expect it unless they were forced to by the league. I know they don't like
the exact opposite reaction, that they seem to be like this new cutting edge, like trying to be very fashionable brand, and like NFTs kind of fit into that.
I mean, I think they're definitely obviously they're very fashionable. They create beautiful shirts, but they definitely have this. They kind of have a misty look in their eyes, looking back at old school football in a way. Okay. I don't think they like the associated modern culture with it. I think they feel like a real throwback in many ways. So if it's their choice, I don't know if we're going to see any more Tessmans, which maybe, in Harry's case, is a very good thing.
Yeah.
Oh, unless you don't own him, Harry. I guess
you
don't.
Say, Harry, do you have one?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
No, yeah.
Right after we buy Griezmann, right? And yeah, so I think it's a good shout, and obviously there's plenty of utility. Second Vision Europe U23 is there. The L15 is obviously based significantly on Tessman barely playing, and so these are, again, threshold wise, these are the types of players we want. The only hesitation is whether he smashes it before January 30th and the L15 gets up to 55 or whatever, but an L15 of 40 is pretty solid, and obviously you can play him in specialist right now.
Yeah. True, but Serie B doesn't return until midway through January, so
I see 3:30.
Like they have like a little gap somewhere in like early January through to mid through. I call it the calendar I'm looking at. So there's like 2 weeks there where he can't play. It might mean everything.
Right. Let me
sneak him in.
If I can get some actual days. So they play next week, and then on Boxing Day, and then January 16. It's actually 3 games after that break before the changeover. So
could be 5. Could have been 5. It's only 3. We take the wins. We take the wins.
Right. Actually, no. 3:30. That one should count. The Boxing Day one.
Yeah.
Monday.
Go on, Harry. Just go and buy him now in front of us.
Shall I?
He's on the market for 0.138. Go for it. I bought a Callum Slattery Limited live. That was £3.50. Now return the favour.
I actually bought a Callum Slattery rare like 2 days ago, thinking that I'd need a midfielder for this upcoming game week, and then I realized that you still only need 4 players. So I've bought a Slattery for no reason, effectively, because I can't play him. I just can play the exact same team that I had last weekend. So I now have a super rare Slat and a rare Slattery. So I probably just need to buy a limited, really, don't I? Complete the trio.
You absolutely have to. I can't possibly somebody who has a super rare and a rare and not the limited.
The Tanner super rare for 0.6. I mean, it doesn't sound as nice as the rare for 0.1, but I might need to work on that, as in not pay 0.6, but
of course.
Very good.
Yeah.
Who owns it?
Racia. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I like that shout. And that's super rare. Obviously, there are not many of them. So if Tessman has a huge game, nobody else is really benefiting from that, or not enough people are. You 3 can sit on the podium when he bangs his 90 with your super rare. Cool. All right. I think that does it for today. As a reminder, this list is available on Sorare Data. Just search Looking Up with Laird on Sorare TV. That's what it's called. And if you just hit this little heart here, you will like, and then it'll show up on your watch lists whenever you log in. This list includes everyone that we have mentioned on this show, including when our friend Trip and B was here. And then in the notes, there's a list of exactly when we added them. So if guys are much higher than they were back then, I'm sorry that we got them right. So yeah, we'll be back next week with another one. Gentlemen, thank you very much for all of that. And good luck with the end of the World Cup.
Thank you.